This is NEGOTIATEx TV.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the NEGOTIATEx podcast with my good friend Aram. But Aram, please introduce your brother-in-law. I'll go ahead and rip that Band-Aid off for you.
Yeah, he is my brother-in-law. So folks, welcome. Keeping it in the family today, as we like to say. We have the opportunity to hear from Mike Farag from Fervor Marketing. Why have a marketer on the show? Great question. We don't even know, but we think there's probably something that negotiators can learn from a marketing expert. If we think of marketing as a way to influence, and not only that, but also in the way business is done. And having known Mike and had a lot of conversations over the years with Mike, I'm excited to kind of delve into this and see what we can learn. So let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Farag. Mike understands what it's like to find a vocation worth pouring your heart into, because after years of climbing the corporate ladder, both sales and marketing, Mike discovered where his heart really was while on a mission trip to Haiti. After seeing firsthand the very real difference that one organization could make in the lives of many, he found a passion for serving brands at the intersection of faith and business, about living out our calling through our work, and about developing healthy organizational cultures so they can succeed from the inside out. And so Fervor was born. Through this award-winning agency, Mike has been serving nonprofits and businesses of all sizes for the past 13 years so they can have and make a greater impact in the world. To date, Fervor has helped 87 organizations refine their messaging and brand identity through their signature brand impact assessment. Currently, Mike and his team serve faith-led organizations in Kansas City and across the country with strategy, brand development, ongoing communication, consulting, and marketing across all channels and for a variety of industries. Under Mike's leadership, Fervor is revolutionizing the craft of helping organizations articulate their purpose, align their work, and amplify their reach so they can do the most good possible. In addition to being Fervor's CEO and chief vision caster, Mike leads Fervor's business development efforts. He loves the outdoors and loves spending time with his amazing wife. And I'm not just saying that because she's my wife's sister, okay, but she is quite amazing, and their 4 beautiful children. So, Mike, welcome. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you guys, Nolan, Aram. So good to be here. Thanks for that intro, man. I feel privileged, have that read by such a man as yourself.
So, Mike, that's the kind of online bio, and we want people to kind of know who you are. But man, how did you get here? What's been in your own reflection the journey from climbing the corporate ladder to entrepreneur, owning your own marketing firm?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to share and certainly want to make this relevant to the theme of what does real, negotiation look like, and what sort of value might we be able to add, or I'm able to add at all. And I think that started long before I started Fervor in my corporate climb. I loved and was climbing as hard and fast as I could, kind of, let's call it negotiating the best deal possible for Mr. Farag here. And I was focused on that. It was a lot about what I could get from the corporate construct. And they were really good at rewarding that, guys. I mean, if you could figure out what you did for them and did well for them, and you're willing to put that sort of level of effort in, you got a really good coin in return. And that was my hard charging kind of first half of my career, until lots of things changed in my world. A big personal change with a loss of my first marriage sent me on a very different quest. I started journaling, and by the way, guys, if you're not a journaler, I don't care who you are, what you do in your career, a journal is a magic thing. Retrospective is something we all can learn from. And when you journal, you get a chance to get a retrospective. And for me, this was really helpful. I started journaling at that kind of pivotal point in my life, and I thought, it became really clear to me that I needed to leave that corporate construct for something else, and I didn't know what that something else was. And so, lo and behold, a mission trip to Haiti was what really got me started on this current path. In July of 2008, I remember it clearly. and I saw something that I'd always wanted in my life, and that was real joy. And I happened to go to Haiti to find that, and I thought, I want a little bit more of that in my life. And I wasn't called to be on the front line of, the mission field. I was given lots of gifts: marketing, communication, strategic thinking. And I was like, I don't think that serves me really well in the front line of Haiti here. Like, I just don't think it does. So when I came home, I found out that there was a problem in the world, and lots of organizations needed help being as good publicly as they were inside the organization. By the way, I think that's true for leaders too. We get in our own way a lot of times, and the public persona is different than what the inside heart of a leader looks like. And I think that's true for lots of great organizations. And it turns out they need a really great marketing communications firm to help them make sure that what is outside, what they say and do and feel and show, is as good as what they and who they are inside the organization. And it turns out my favorite thing to do is to do that for organizations like the group that took me to Haiti. So nonprofit, faith-based nonprofits of all kinds and stripes are our target audience, and it's who we help try to grow and from the inside out, because we believe that's where great growth comes from. And that's what I get to spend my days doing. I got a great team of people. We get a chance to go tackle this mountain together, and it's a blast most days.
Mike, thanks. All right, so let's tackle the elephant in the room. What do we have to learn from you? What can you what from a marketing lens and the way you approach the way you help organizations? What can we take from that would help our listeners be more effective in negotiations they're involved in?
Yeah. I think at the core of what I get a chance to do every day, but what I believe marketing is about, is understanding audience and connecting a message to the audience. And correct me if I'm wrong, fellas, but I'm pretty sure that's what negotiation starts with. Understanding what are frustrations and needs of the other end of the spectrum, not just you, because we all have internal needs and frustrations, and largely we're blinded by our own, as opposed to really understanding what someone else needs. And in the marketing space, what we do all day, every day, is help our clients understand the audience, their target, their main audience. We happen to call them ideal advocates, because we believe advocacy actually changes more than just what a target buyer persona might look like. And what we think from that perspective is that when you understand audience and you understand their needs, their frustrations, and you craft a message that connects with them in a voice that can be understood, and then magic starts to happen, because now real connections, real relationships starts to happen. We have common ground. And gosh, I think from a negotiation standpoint, I'm negotiating the sale of lots of things for clients, or the donation of millions of dollars for clients. And that takes a real keen understanding of audience and what message is going to resonate with that audience the best. And so what I would hope, so from a target audience perspective, when I think about what do we have to teach anyone about negotiation, gosh, I think we have a lot to teach them about negotiation, because I think the best negotiators start with the end in mind, and they start with their audience in their crosshairs. And when they have their audience in their crosshairs, the more they know about them, the more they've thought about them, the more they've thought about how they got up in the morning, what do they drive to work, what do they care about, what are their current real felt needs, this real visceral kind of, we would call this a physical need. Before we can actually get to the negotiation needs, we've got to cure the physical needs, which lots of times are, what is the burning questions or series of questions in their minds? And they're not going to hear anything else until we've kind of already addressed those sorts of key issues. That's true in marketing for sure, when we're trying to deliver a message, no matter what the medium we're trying to deliver. And I think it's true in negotiation. At least that's my current working hypothesis for you in terms of what we might teach is great profiles, great messaging probably leads to a great negotiation.
I think, well, if I could jump in here, Aaron. So I think what's awesome is that, Mike, you're really kind of highlighting almost like our process, but we're just using different words in exchange here. You brought up a lot about communication relationships and how that allows you to uncover interest. Well, for us, that's essentially getting into the value, the circle of value, to be able to figure out those needs, to be able to start really answering those questions. And it all starts with good communication, good relationships. Aaron.
Yeah, I love, thanks, Nolan. You talk about ideal advocates, Mike. So I'm just curious, why isn't it obvious to the folks you work with that they need to do this, and kind of how do you make, how do you put the sauce together? How do you help them do that?
Well, it's really hard. So, I mean, think about this. I mean, we all think in most cases, humans, we're, we're pretty simple. We think the way we see the world is the way others see the world. And so when we walk in the room, we automatically start to have assumptions about, well, they automatically know what I know. And when I say things, it makes sense. The truth is, read the same piece of paper, and Aaron and I and Nolan and I, we're going to read it. We're still going to interpret that piece of paper, the same words on the page, differently. Same data in front of us, we're still going to interpret it differently. And we're going to hear different things because it's our paradigm, it's our story. You haven't been, to the same places. I haven't been in the same situations as you. And so we're automatically going to, the words are going to matter. When I say the word theater or in theater to a bunch of military guys, I automatically know that is a different modicum. And if they have been in combat, it's going to be a different modicum than somebody who's never, ever served a day in their life. Guys, it's the same words, but it carries with it very different weight. And that matters. And so we have to know the audience. The better we understand the audience and their historical understanding, the more we can measure a really good message to hit. Why don't they understand this? Because humans just naturally think we've had the same experiences when we walk in the room. And if I say in theater to you, you're going to understand what I mean by it. I didn't mean in combat. Of course not. We're not here. We're here in a theater. I mean, we're physically in a theater or something else. But the truth of the matter is, you carry with it all of your historical understanding and context. And that is what we really try to get clients to understand, is that this isn't really about them. In fact, they think it's the Field of Dreams. And I love the Field of Dreams. It's a great movie. It is the absolute worst kind of marketing ever. And so you don't just get to write your message apart from your audience and then hope people come. You don't do that. Not if you want to grow, especially in an early stage organization. This is where I believe, like, we love Simon Sinek. We believe he's got a great kind of modicum of, why, how, and what, the golden circle. But we think that misses the mark in lots of ways, because typically that means you've written it and now you're hoping that just droves of people will show up because they will buy why you do. Well, the droves of people never show up until you tell them and you have a chance to talk to them. And so what we've missed in this perspective is that, he was profiling large organizations, been around for years, and have had a chance to, millions and millions, if not billions of dollars worth of ad budgets. And most of the organizations we work with just don't have that. And they're never going to have that kind of platform. What they do have is advocacy, and they do have a chance to relate a real message to somebody. And so I think we start to show them that value of what that looks like. Why don't they know it coming in? And they're human, just like you and I. And it's hard to, shed your human qualities when you walk in a room. You just make assumptions.
Mike, ever an example you could share of an organization you've worked with who was kind of building it and hoping folks are going to come, kind of striking out, and then you come in, help them kind of reframe their focus and do some hard work around ideal advocacy, advocates, and see a turnaround in the success they're having?
Yeah, gosh, we've got a bunch of these kinds of stories, and I love that we do, because we've just been along some great organizations, and I would say lucky to serve some great organizations that are willing to listen and grow. The first one that comes to mind is the first one that I went with, back in, it's the inception story for us. They're now called the Global Orphan Project. When I went on that trip to Haiti, July of 2008, they were called C3 Missions International. Do you know why? Because the founder earned his money in propane, and he's a great guy. So let me just say this, hey, publicly, I love this man dearly. He is almost a family member to me. But he named his organization C3 because C3H8 was the chemical compound for propane. That's how he made his money. So why wouldn't he just name his charity C3? this is how we're, and when I showed up, I went on this trip, life-changing trip. I was like, Mike, his name's Mike. You say this is the most important work you've ever done, and it does not look like it. It does not sound like it. And the story is about you. Is that what we want people to understand when you're out there serving widows and orphans? That this is about you and your money and how you made it? Because that's from the very start, from the very jump, it's about you, C3. So we did a brand, what we call brand impact assessment, which is a big 8-week process for us to really do. I do advocates, messaging strategies, etc. And we did this process. This was the first time I'd ever done this process. By the way, we didn't call it that then. I just knew the pieces and parts. Been trained by the big companies to do it this way, and we added some different, a couple of different flavors to this. And man, it was impactful. We profiled the audience. We thought about messaging, and that led us to a need for a name change because it needed to be about others. The audience wanted and needed. They were drawn to this organization in very profound ways, but they were trapped. They weren't really sharing about this organization. They weren't really advocating for this organization. Why? Because the messaging was really hard to understand. The name was like nondescript. Like there was just so many challenges. And so the barriers for being able to share about the organization and actually have alignment were really high. So all we did, we took the barriers all the way down. New name, new logo, a strategy of communication for specific audience. We typed the audience, and it was, gosh, it's been impactful. So they've gone from, $1.5 million organization to, guys, they are, pushing 20, 10 years. They have for-profit arms that are earning even more income that aren't even part of the nonprofit now. They're very innovative, and it's unlocked a lot of things. You should see the way they're using this brand today, and we couldn't have planned it better. And by the way, we don't have anything to do with it anymore. When you unlock potential, it goes in directions you could never plan. And they are just off to the races, and I love it. Kim and I, my wife and I are very connected to this organization. We love it. And yet we have no idea all of the places they've taken this organization now. It's fantastic to watch. And it started with, an owner founder being willing to, think a little differently. That, in my opinion, that's part of what it takes for us to accept that what we think and something that we hold dear might be better if we open our hand up a little bit wider.
And it sounds like you've got to practice that too. So as you guided him, you're kind of practicing what you want your client to do with their customers or their advocates. You're doing the same, it sounds like, with your clients. It's not about you and Fervor. It's about understanding and listening to them.
Oh, I hope so. I think this is a major negotiation, because let's think about it. I'm trying to put it in your terms too. Like, largely what an organization like mine wants, long-term clients. You spend a lot of time getting them, and now you want to keep them for a long time. But that may not be what's best for them. And if I really want to practice what I preach, and I think about the audience and their needs and frustrations and their heart's desire, gosh, I may be able to serve them really well for the next 2 years, get them out of their own way, give them some real good building blocks, and then turn them loose on the world in different ways to a larger agency or an internal agency or you name it. And that's, I think, what most of us we get in our own way, myself included. And so we try to take this pill of practicing what we preach as much as we can. And so lots of times what we say is our main goal is we want to make sure that there's always more impact with us than without us. And the moment that changes, we want to get out the way.
So you talked, Mike, about the impact assessment. And again, I don't know how much of the onion you can peel back there. 8 weeks. How much resistance do you get from folks who are like, now we just need to get this moving faster? What are you talking about? 8 weeks of discovering, and doing research and analysis. Which, by the way, Nolan and I would be on your side because we think there's a lot of good work to be done in preparing for negotiations. So, anyways, what sort of resistance do you get on that?
Oh man, I would think we're in lockstep with you guys on lots of pushback on time invested in terms of what it really takes to come up with a successful outcome, and lots of pushback. The reason we've worked with now pushing over 1,000 organizations, and just pushing 100 of them have done our main process is because, 10% of the groups that we work with have said, hey, we're willing to do all of, we're kind of willing to do the full process. Let's bake a really good cake. And most of them, like, hey, we all want to move fast and break things. And that has become, I would say that's also become, the market's working against us in a lot of ways. The startup community and mentality is move fast, fail fast, as opposed to think critically. I wish we might think about, to a little bit of think critically. The old axiom, measure twice, cut once, is not what's in favor. And so this is true for lots of our clients. Now, the true innovators, they want to move fast, but they also want to move intentionally. And that's where we love kind of entrepreneurial, innovative, nonprofit clients. That sort of temper and tone means that they're going to look at an ROI, and they're also going to want a plan, and they want to know where they're headed, and they want to know where they're headed before they really, pull out of the driveway. And so they're willing to put a map together, a sum of a map. Now, 8 weeks, still hard to sell, candidly. But man, it's been a lot of fun, and now we're at 89 times that, somebody's let us do this with them. And we're doing number 90 right now. We're in the middle of number 90 right now. And it is probably still the most fun I have, because we really do get every sense of the organization, divisional understanding, budget understanding. Everything has to work together if you really want to grow. And really, isn't that what marketing's about? Is growth. Usually they're asking us a growth question, even though it's under the guise of, hey, we need a new website or a new brand or a new something or a campaign to help us. And the real question, once you peel back a couple more layers, is, hey, we really have a growth need. Okay, cool, share that. What's the next 2 years? What's the next 10 years? What's the real growth, kind of number? And then we devise a plan to help you get there. That's the most fun. Is it hard? Absolutely. Most clients, most prospects, not clients, once they become a client, they kind of drink Kool-Aid. Most prospects are really averse to 8 weeks of strategy and no execution. And they're like, that doesn't sound like what I asked you for. Can't we get a website in that time? And isn't that going to do it? Yep. That's not going to do it. We would say we're much more the vitamin, and we're going to help you over time. It's the gym and the vitamins, and you can't predict results. You can't go see results the first meeting. You can't see results the second meeting, but going to the gym over time, you're going to start to look and feel better. And that's what we are akin to, vitamins and gym over time.
Nice. So, one of the things Nolan and I often say to folks is that negotiators just aren't creative enough. You are a creative. You lead a team of creatives. You hire creatives. This is probably never a problem for you. Trying to solve a problem, get more creative. You probably have too much creativity. So I don't know. I mean, is it ever with your clients? How do you foster an environment of creativity? Are there things you do that kind of help bring that to the surface?
This is a great question. This is fun. So this is where I think you might be right. I think lots of us, but by the way, I think this is true in lots of industries. We get a chance to see lots of different kinds of organizations through our doors. And by the way, solving problems creatively is a challenge for all of us. So I would say we do a couple of things. One, this is back from my sprint days, but we require both our team and we want our clients to bring us the real problem. So don't bring us the solution, bring us the problem. And then with our team, we want them to bring at least 3 to 5 possibilities, possible solutions every time. They now know me as the option guy, and my team says, "Oh, Farag's the option guy. He's always going to want options." And my contention is there's not one way to solve issues. There's multiple ways to solve issues. And that to me is one of the maybe beginnings of starting to say, maybe there's not just one possible solution or possible outcome here that is still a win. That there might be 4 or 5 or 10 possible outcomes that's still a win. And we're looking for both sides. We're looking for us to feel good about the work that we're doing, and the client to feel good about the return they're getting, and everybody to have that this is a good workable solution for both sides. I think this is true in negotiation. So multiple options are like kind of the paramount. Let's call it the 101. We got to have that before we can have anything. then we would start to say, I think this is another, we've done this kind of scenario where we've said, hey, um, we really want you to run it all the way to outcome. Like, so run option and run it all the way to outcome. So all the way, take that sort of solution and then go 3 to 5 steps down the road. So run it to outcome. What is possible outcomes? We run a game called high low sometimes. We try to just make it a little fun, like, hey, what's the top and the bottom side of this, like the worst case scenario and the best case scenario. And we run high low on lots of things on a regular basis. By the way, just sometimes retitling something and not saying best case, worst case feels different to the human mind. And so I am a big advocate of word choice. And if you just say, hey, we're going to play a little game called high low with the client, by the way, that doesn't feel like worst case or best case scenario, like you've done in several boardrooms along the way. We've done a variety of games where we really try to gain alignment. Alignment is super key. I believe this is where negotiation can really have true alignment. And sometimes what we have is we talk about, real issues. So we do an issues card, and we start lots of big meetings that have, probably difficult, challenging things to solve in the meeting. And we'll ask for a pardon for 2 hours. No issues can be discussed for those 2 hours once they've been written down. We're going to capture these issues. Used to be, guys, Sprint used to call this, and you've probably been in a room, somebody said, well, let's put that in the parking lot, they'll write it on the whiteboard. This is a different version of that, similar tactic. So we put them on cards, write them on cards. Everybody says them. We've captured them. We write them in a document, capture them. Okay, we have your concerns. Now you can put them to the side for the next 2 hours of this meeting. No concerns need to be brought up anymore. You can pick them up on your way out. Feel free to pick those concerns back up on the way out. But what we've done is tried a mental model of putting them, getting their barrier down. All we're trying to do is get barriers down so that, because I believe what's in the way, you say creativity, Aram, what I hear is they're just in their own way. I think lots of us have innately gifted ability to see the world differently if we're given the chance to see it differently, but we're in our own way. We have those barriers, those blinders. And if we can get those blinders off in whatever way guess what happens, man? New solutions, new creativity ensues, and we start to have a better conversation than we would have had before.
It relies a lot on process management, Mike, as that the issues card piece, and to get those ground rules agreement so that you can do that and create that environment where barriers are down. I think that's a nice addition to our mantra about people being more creative, trying to think outside the box on these complex problems that, as you described, are holistic. Part of it is what's the process we're using to create the environment to do that.
Oh man, isn't environment so key? If you walked in a noisy place to try to have a big conversation, I mean, if you had a deal worth $1 million and you would go in a place that doesn't feel like $1 million, automatically you're at 500,000. Like, just move it down by half. And I think that environment is a major, major contention. And we, when you enter that room, get the chance to set the environment and set the tone, or reset the tone. And sometimes you have to reset the tone. Sometimes it's process, to be sure, Aram. And sometimes, man, you're like, we set the stage a month beforehand because we picked the right room, we picked the right place, we picked the right music, we picked the right, these things are details that I believe have an influence and an impact on how conversations feel.
Yeah, Roger Fisher, who is the founder of so much of the thought around negotiation, would be very intentional setting up a room with the people he wanted to sit next to each other for the conversations, and avoiding the combative feeling of being across the table and fighting. A lot of intentionality there to create the right environment.
And today's day and age, this is becoming more of a challenge, right? Because lots of our negotiations or conversations are happening like we're doing right now. They're online, they are screened. And so certainly environment is harder to control in some ways because we're communicating digitally more than ever. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be intentional about how and what. In fact, it probably means we have to up the game in terms of what we do and how we say and what our kind of before prep and after follow-up looks like.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, I got a question for you. So we had talked about, once you get a prospect to become a client, they're going to drink the Kool-Aid. how do you cross that gap? Like, what do you do going, kind of taking it back to communication relationship here? How do you deal with someone who isn't necessarily drinking the Kool-Aid, but you're not ready to give up on them yet? Is there something that you can do to help set the stage for them to become more likely to become a client, I guess?
So this is, let me just ask a couple of questions, Nolan. So is this, they've said yes, we're a client, we're engaged, we're doing work together, or we're still prospect?
I think they're more in the prospect.
Okay.
Yep. I think they're in the prospect stage, and we're trying to get them to become a client.
Yeah. I mean, guys, this is where I think, like, so I go back to sales and marketing roles that I had previous, and then fast forward into like how today it works with how we coach clients, and then how we might even practice this. But I think there is a real a real miss in multimedia, and by that I mean most folks that I talk to would tell you, oh, Mike sent us a handwritten note during the prospect. He called us. He emailed us. He got the team to do a video saying, hey, we'd love to have you as a client. He got they got follow up on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. There was never a miss with, us being available and followed up. Sometimes if he got our mobile, he even texted us. I mean, like, we go like what we want to show a client that we're going to do with their clients, which is multidimensional. If your follow-up and your communication is one-dimensional, is that prime negotiation? I mean, I don't think that's prime negotiation. That's not how you would probably want it in return if anybody was chasing you down for something. And so, like in this sense, we would try to practice that like we would show a client, hey, we're going to chase you down multi. For some clients, gosh, man, even I would say, I'm just going to share this publicly. We've even done like some digital campaigns around them. We've done some geo-targeting where they're going to get our ads when they go walking in their building, because we will fence their building, and they're going to get our ads like Fervor loves so-and-so. I mean, I'm going to be relentless in also showing two things. It does two things. It shows our digital practicum and our knowledge base and what we're good at. And it also shows we're chasing them down. We want to be, in relationship there. And we're going to do it in multi-dimension. We're not just going to follow up an email and email and email. We're going to do it multimedia. So there's one, and that's what for our clients and prospects. The other is, I think, gosh, we leave out a lot of option post decision. So like, I think, lots of times we let a client go or a prospect go way too early. We think a deal is done or a deal's dead or a prospect's dead way too early. And this is where I start drinking, the long tail Kool-Aid on myself. And I want our clients to do that too. Like, this relationship, even if they're not paying clients for us, they could be an advocate for us. So even if our relationship might only be a 1 year or 2 year engagement, great. But you know what? Most of my clients come from my previous clients. And so if I think about playing the long game, I'm just trying to make them advocates. That's really all I'm trying to do. Whether I sell them or not, I really want to sell them on our thought process, our way of doing business, more than I want to sell them some sort of engagement. Because long term, that will feed all of the families that I am in charge of, not just 1 or 2 this year.
No, that's great. I think the framing of just trying to make everyone advocates, even if they don't become a client, they can still say, hey, that Mike guy over at Fervor, is very persuasive. Timing just wasn't right, but it may be still good for you. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I tell the story lots of times about advocates, and in the marketing world, most of them are talking about buyer personas or an ideal buyer. They're not necessarily talking about advocates. What's the difference? I've got a good buddy here in Kansas City. I'm here in Kansas City. I got a great buddy who's a BMW repair shop. I do not drive a BMW. And yet last year, I'm pretty sure he's got 30 or 35 clients because I told him where to go. Now, would you rather now I'm not going to be a target buyer persona for this guy. I mean, you're never going to target me because I don't own a BMW. Here's what's wrong with, I think, marketing, and even maybe, by the way, sometimes negotiation, is we're too short-sighted in what we think is a good client, because we're defining it as a client for today. advocate, the reason why we don't call them target clients is we call them advocates. Why? Because I want it to be a lifetime engagement in some way, shape, or form, or at least a long-term relationship. And so my buddy doesn't care that I don't drive a BMW. I mean, if I keep bringing him 30 or 40 people a year, you think he's going to care whether what I drive? Nope. I mean, now he'd love for me to drive one, but that's just not in the cards, man. 4 kids, that's not in the cards for Farag, you know? But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't be a target for him, right? That he shouldn't care about me and communicate with me effectively and regularly. And follow up. Like, I'm probably should be on his lunch. Yeah, actually, come to think about it, I probably should be on his lunch menu. So.
So, Mike, so much of what you're talking about requires some perspective, and it requires dealing kind of in a fair, reasonable, just way with your clients, encouraging them to do with in the same with their customers. How else do you think about fairness? Fairness is a critical component to our model. We think about standards of legitimacy criteria. Is that something you use as a marketing tool?
Yeah, I mean, I think the theology, if you will, for us is absolutely grounded in, a fair and equitable, approach, both sides. And whether we're doing a deal with a client and we want an engagement, whether we're trying to put together a program and an approach for a client at market, level, external, or we're dealing a lot with their internal dialogue and paradigm. In lots of times, this is happening. I'll just share, like in the nonprofit space, this happens all the time between the board and the executive team, and I think this sort of negotiation, board to executive, is a regular occurrence for us to help negotiate, because really the exec might bring us in and they are trying to figure out how do they grow. They've got a growth plan, and then they've got to kind of go sell it into the board. And lots of times there's a real need to what's real fair, what do I control, what do I have authority to control, and what do they control and they have the authority to control. And this sort of dialogue and even sometimes discourse is real palatable. I mean, like, I'm in the room a lot of times with this. I mean, I've just kind of recounting this to a group this morning, that I think I've attended something like 500 board meetings in the last 13 years. And so I've had a front row seat to both good and bad fairness approaches. And I think this has got to be one of the paramounts. Like, it's almost guys, it's almost akin to trust. And if we don't trust the other party that they're going to do what they said they're going to do, that they're not going to really in good faith approach me and approach others, then I don't necessarily have the sense to be fair, because I'm going to get what I need for me. And then we go back to protection modes. Then we go back to me. Then we go back to corporate days of Farag. Like, it's not what's in it for others. It's what's in it, what I can get now. And that is short. It's transactional, and it does not last very long. In fact, sometimes it doesn't even last. The ink's dry, and that's about the time that it starts to demise. So I think fairness as a paradigm and trust as a paradigm have to be the theology of standing. There's some real foundational things that must be at play. And so I think some of this is in the sales process or in a prospecting process. I think some of this is in dialogue, pre-dialogue, before you get to real kind of final negotiation point or final deal points, that has to be sussed out. Do we have some sort of our team, if you asked our team, they'd call it chemistry. Do we have chemistry, Mike? Is there chemistry there? And what they're saying on the surface is a surface description of, what do we feel? Do we like? Do we have alignment? Do we trust them? Do we think they're going to be good and fair to us? And when that's broken, we use a process called Fetch. I'm in a CEO mastermind group, and they put together a little process to have really tough conversations, crucial conversations, critical conversations. I mean, there's a whole host of books that we've read, our exec team and myself, like we would employ kind of this crucial conversations to bring both parties together and say, hey, this is not how we operate. In fact, our team just had one of these with a client this week. This is not how we operate. If we did this to you, we would be admonishing our team member, and you did this to us, and we feel like we need to bring it forward. And guys, I think that's a lost art. By the way, it's biblical. I mean, this would be a Matthew 18. I mean, like, this would be a, so for me, this is a biblical paradigm too, for me to come at and say, listen, we need to come together and we need to work our differences out, or work out how to not be together doing business, because one of the two is not going to be good for our heart and our, and our organizational, our organizations.
So some of what you described there too, is you talked about understanding your client's internal dynamics. It sounds like you do some of that work ahead of time. You understand some of the places and sources of resistance, or the challenges they're going to face to communicating internally. You've thought about that, and that's part of your plan to help them as well.
It has to be, to me, Aram. At this point, in 13 years in, I don't know any other way to do it. So maybe this is just, but gosh, if we don't understand internal dynamics, we can walk into a real mess with our eyes closed. I'd much rather walk in understanding what's what. So we plan and prepare. Doesn't mean we don't walk in. Sometimes it does. Sometimes we push the eject button. We're like, that's too much. And sometimes we just walk in with our eyes open. We understand it's going to be a messy situation, or we understand that, what are the landmines, and we're trying to avoid the landmines, so, I mean, we got a survey, and I think that's partly my responsibility as the front, kind of the front person to suss out and say, hey, what are the things? How's the board interaction? How's the executive team? Do they run on a system? Are they doing scaling up? Are they doing EOS? Are they running a system? Do they have regular meetings? Do they have a strategy document they're all bought into? When I ask their question about mission, vision, values, can they say it? These kinds of things are, telltale of like how an organization health and well-being is going. So the more we know, the easier it is and better it is for us to be able to, help them get around and grow.
And what I like that you addressed there, Mike, is we always kind of talk about hard bargainers and negotiations, and you had said that, hey, I'm not going to allow you to kind of talk to us that way. We need to figure out how to work through our differences so that we can continue on this path of our relationship. And so I just wanted to highlight that there, that was a great example of how other companies can deal with hard bargainers in a negotiation.
Yeah.
So good job with that.
Thanks. It's a scary place to be sometimes, because you know what you're doing when you do that. You're putting it on the line, and that relationship, if that conversation doesn't get negotiated well, if it doesn't get done well, the client may not be a client anymore. My contention is I love clients. We are here to serve clients, but guys, we operate under the theology that our team comes first. And I have to operate that way all the time, or else I am an absolute hypocrite, because I believe we win inside out. And if that team knows that I got their back, they will walk through the wall with me, and sometimes for me. And I will do the same for them. And that means that we love our clients and we want to help them grow, but they come second. Our team is first. And I think when you come into it with some sort of baseline theology or baseline understanding, then you already know, okay, it's okay. We got to do this because this is values-based decision making. This is how we're going to make. We're absolutely in our, we don't have a choice really, because if we're gonna live our values, then we're going to do it this way. So.
Well, Mike, just one more question. So much you've talked about today is about leadership, right? We're saying it's from a marketing perspective, but it's leadership, right? And we think of negotiation as a critical leader skill, right? You can't separate. As a leader, I negotiate. As a negotiator, I'll be more effective if I see myself as a leader. As you work with the leaders of organizations around brand and reputation and identity and persona and all these things, and for our listeners, what's some nuggets of advice from a leadership, like just a leadership frame, to be better?
Well, I think that the last line that you just said, Aram, is probably the biggest line, at least for me. And as I get a chance to work with lots of leaders, and I love them. We're all broken, we're all trying. But if you're not trying to get better, then I already know a lot of things about you that are probably not in the positive category. The leaders that I see, and the kind of leader that I want to and aspire to continue to be, is a leader that wants to keep getting better, that will mess up, that will own the mess up, but will always strive to improve and get better. And that, until they put me in the ground, that is, I hope, what I will continue to be doing. And I don't think you arrive, at whatever age or whatever length of time or what size of your business or size of the organization. I just don't think that's true. I think you just get bigger. So whether you got 100 people or whether you got 1,000 people or you got 10 people, you got people, and you are probably as messed up and making bad decisions and as anyone else, no matter the size, unless you're willing to learn from it. And that is the first. So start there. So and there's lots of great organizational books about kind of leadership mentality, and I certainly love reading. I think that's another thing that I see great leaders doing. This is not news, but this is something that I see great leaders doing. They're reading on a regular basis. That's part of the continuing aspire to learn and grow, right? Like, is the outcome, the action that we should see is, you're in groups. But here's the thing that I think for me that I would tell every leader that has been a main turning point for me. And by the way, as a man, as a father, as a husband, not just as a business owner or a business leader, wise counsel around you. The number one thing that I think leaders can do, and I think this is true for everybody, by the way, not just leaders, but it is especially true and needed for leaders. If you don't have wise counsel around you, and by that I mean, I had a guy at Fellowship of Christian Athletes tell me one time, and I'd love to give this guy credit. I don't remember the man's name, but he said, Mike, you should be able to put 4 boxes. A box above you, somebody that's mentoring you. A box below you, somebody that you're mentoring. And 2 boxes next to you, 2 brothers in arms. And this should be at least a minimum. Those 4, you should have 4 names in those boxes, and you should have those at all times. Maybe more names. That's great, but at least those 4. And guys, I would tell you that the leaders that I see that have wise counsel around them, that make it intentional to put people around them to speak truth, to help them grow, to challenge them, to make them better, are the leaders that are doing a great job at growing and leading. And the ones that don't have that, really, really tough.
Hey, Mike, no, I think that's awesome insight. Is there anything else that we haven't asked you that you need to address right now that is just weighing in on your chest? It's something that we should have asked you, but we just didn't.
Well, I think we covered this a little bit, but I always love to remind people that I have a very simple but effective question, no matter what kind of marketing or communication or negotiation they're in. Remember, who's it for? And when they can answer that question, who's it for, lots of other things start to fall in place. I think that's true in negotiation. It's certainly true in the world of marketing communications.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mike. And thanks for coming onto the show today. I just want to be the first to say that you definitely have helped frame this. I think every time we bring on a listener from a different industry, it's able to provide a different lens, a different perspective on what Aram and I are trying to do here. And that's to elevate people's influence through purposeful negotiation. So thank you so much. I'll turn it over to Aram.
Yeah, Mike, I'll just echo the thanks. Appreciate you taking the time. I think we answered the question. What can a negotiator learn from a marketing expert? And as I think about it, the power of journaling, the power of retrospection, hard to know, who's it for? What's the key why that I'm trying to answer? Hard to get better if I'm not doing that. And so I appreciate that challenge for us all to go back, learn, and be reflective, to read, to get to surround ourselves with helpful partners in our efforts, and then really take the time too. I just, from your impact assessment, I think the takeaway there that I remind folks is take the time to get the stuff right, do your homework, and you have a greater chance of getting it right in the long run.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. This has been a fun conversation. I always like giving grief, and it feels like, this is a good place to do that. So thanks for letting me come talk a little bit. It's been fun.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, you can send that to us at team@negotiatex.com. We'll be sure to cover it there. If you could please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast, we'll greatly appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for checking out this video on NEGOTIATEx TV. If you found any value at all, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification icon if you want to be notified of future videos. And then we also have a couple videos over here that you might be interested in checking out. If you and your small business, your team are looking to get negotiations or leadership training, then you can head over to negotiatex.com and learn more about the coaching services we offer. Thanks, and I'll see you over in the next video.